Okay, let's try this again. 2 weeks in a row, I keep getting cut off in my own house, so that's not a good sign for my internet connection. But it's Friday. I love bringing tips on Friday when I can. And today I want to talk about some of the things that I've been talking to my athletes about, some of which I'm starting for the first time. And it's how to manage the off season. I have some athletes that have been never trained through the off season before, and they've been quite honest that this will be the first time that they actually are training through the off season. And what does that mean? And what are the things that they should be focusing on, and how should they be handling their mental approach? And is it okay to have ups and downs mentally as well as physically in the off season? And so those are some of the things that I have struggled with throughout the years, or have had to figure out throughout the years. And I know that same for other people have had to also figure that out. So my hope today is to kind of give you some insight on what I know I've dealt with, what I know some of the other people that I've raced with for years and had success have dealt with, and then hopefully you guys can take some information from that. As well as, if you are doing off-season training, I want to talk a little bit about testing, and to make sure that when you are testing, you're doing the right kinds of tests, because I do think sometimes people with the best intentions don't test correctly in the off season. So let's make sure that you're getting the test right done. So first, let's start with testing. When you test, I know that there's a lot of tests out there. Look, at the end of the day, a test is nothing more than for you to check in and see if you're making progress. So whatever your test is, it's fine, right? But if you want to actually test FTP, I really don't like the 20-minute tests when it comes to indoor riding. I know that it's mentally easier to get through, but I also don't like it because it is a little bit more easily to get through mentally. And I do feel like people can get a false high from their FTP because you can train for that test specifically. And so sometimes when you see the 20-minute values go up, it doesn't really translate completely to what you can expect to see outside. So what I like to tell my athletes to do is a 30-minute test. And the reason that I like to do a 30-minute test is, hopefully I can say this math and it sounds clear and I don't mess it up as I talk. What you do by yourself in an unmotivated situation, or self-motivated, so outside stimulus out, so no racers, no competitions, no group settings, that type of stuff, predicts what you can do for double the time in a race. So your FTP by definition is what you could do for approximately 60 minutes in a race environment. So if you think about that, that means what you could do for 30 minutes by yourself, right? So that's why you want to go ahead and figure out your 30-minute FTP while you're on your trainer by yourself, just self-motivated, because it'll help you get a good handle on what you could do for 60 minutes by yourself. Now, if you are in a situation where you're doing it as a group, you can still do it 30 minutes, but then I would take 5% off if you're doing it in a motivated situation in a group. And the reason that I would do that is anytime you double a distance in a race, you subtract 5%. So you don't have to subtract 5% though if you're by yourself, right? Because if you're by yourself, that's kind of an equalizer. So, but if you are in a situation where you're doing it in a group, make sure that you do scrub 5%. And that's why sometimes when you're doing the 20-minute tests and people will start scrubbing 5%, it just becomes a couple levels too far away from what your actual FTP is. So my suggestion is, it sucks, but try to figure out a way to get through a 30-minute test on your own. Some tips around that are make a playlist that you know is 30 minutes. You know what song's coming, talk yourself through each one. I know that I used to just say to myself, let's make it through 3 minutes. And then after 3 minutes, all I had to do was make it through 2 minutes to get through that 5-minute block. And then I would just keep repeating that cycle every 5 minutes. Another tip that I would do too is if you are on something like Trainer Road, then you want to make sure that you set it at your FTP that you think that you're going to do, and then use the plus and minus to adjust the tension. Try not to shift gears that much. And that's how I would handle your FTP. So I challenge you, guys and gals, to use a 30-minute test to see if that's more accurate and indicative of what you're going to do outside. The next thing that I would say too is focus on, like we've been talking about, be focusing on FTP. I would almost do that a little bit later. I would still be focusing on VO2 intervals, 4 to 6 minutes, both on the run and on the bike. And while you're doing that, I would make your aerobic training more heart rate based. So don't worry so much about what your aerobic training is yielding at this point, because that is going to be race specific actually as you get into the race season. And we'll talk about how you actually do your aerobic training to help increase your racing later. But for right now, you can only focus physiologically on so many things. So focus on the high-end intensity stuff and let aerobic training be where it is. And that's where I would throw the heart monitor on if you're going to do that, or be extremely conservative on pace and output, or power if you're going to do that. We're not trying to get super fit on long days right now. We're trying to build a nice aerobic engine, but we're not trying to necessarily increase our capacity right now for that. That would be my suggestion. What that then leads into is aerobic training can get really boring, especially on the bike. So obviously you have Zwift, you have Trainer Road, you have some things that are really good in terms of giving you some goals and ways to change it up. If you're old school or you're just on a normal trainer, one of the things that I used to do big time was, remember, just like swimming, I use that 4-3-2-1 as a baseline for so many things that I do. So 4-3-2-1 always equals 10. So if you add a 5, 4-3-2-1, you're at 15. So if you have a 3-hour ride or a 2-hour indoor ride, you can go 4-3-2-1, which would give you 10, or you can go 4-4-4, 3-3-3, 2-2-2, 1-1-1, which would be a 40-minute set. And then there too, if you threw a 5 on at the beginning, that would be almost an hour set right there. So those are different ways that I would get myself through that. And one of the things that I would do is just say, great, they're all aerobic, but I can do, let's just take 4-4-4, right? 4 minutes big gear standing, so low RPM. Your heart rate's relatively under control and low, but you're standing in a big gear. And learn how to relax. A lot of people stand really tense when they're standing up. And then for the next 4 minutes, go right into big gear, but slow RPM seated. And then maybe 4 minutes easy spin. And then do the same thing for 3-3-3, 2-2-2, 1-1-1. So those are some ways that I would break that up. You can start at 6s. You can do anything you wanted. But that's a great way to break that mental grind up inside even when you're just watching a movie or doing something like that. And it also helps give the soft tissue a break, because the problem with riding indoors is most trainers, they don't move. So it really can be impactful on our soft tissue. So that's a great way to break that up as well. So those are my biggest tips for right now in terms of physiologically. The other tip that I would say is, if you are training from the off season, remember that what that affords you is you don't have to train all year long. And so what I mean is, I trained all year long, but that also means that I don't have to train all year long. So sometimes when I'm having a mentally low couple days, or when I'm not feeling physically on it, give yourself at this point that mental break, or go eat some extra fun food, or skip a day, or you're building more consistency in your training, so you'll have a bigger bank to draw on to do those things throughout the year. Because what you don't want is to be mentally grinding all through the off season, and then you're going to come into the season and you're going to be already smoked. So yeah, you'll have a little more responsibility training all year, but you also get to alleviate and have more intermittent breaks and allow those breaks to present themselves. Sometimes it's nice to schedule them, but sometimes you just need to take them when they happen. And you'll know it if you're not feeling motivated. Most of us are pretty high achieving, motivated type A people. So if your body or your mind's telling you like, hey, I need a break, listen to it, relax, because trust that no one workout is going to make or break your season. So really get in the habit of looking for patterns. So if you start having several workouts in a row or those types of things, then it's time to readjust. But those are my tips for this Friday. I hope everybody has an amazing weekend, and I'll hopefully see you all next week. Bye.